Hello, thank you for joining us and taking the time to watch this webinar. We'll be talking about our experience implementing fax solutions in local government. My name is Dan Richards and I'm also joined by John Ruder and Richard Spinks, our technical manager. We'll try to keep this fairly sharp and to the point, as I'm sure you're all fairly busy. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask at any point during the presentation through the question window, and we'll answer those at the end of the session. So the agenda for today, I'm going to start off with a brief introduction to our company and explain why fax remains important. Then I'll hand you over to John, and he has a lot of experience working with councils. And he's going to share some of that experience, introduce our solutions, and talk about an example customer, Suffolk County Council. Also, Richard is going to provide a quick demonstration of the software. So first of all, a little bit about our company. So we are Platinum Partner and Distributor for the entire range of OpenText fax solutions. We've been specialised in this market for over 20 years with over 2,000 fax server customers. The solutions we supply are from OpenText, who are by a significant margin the world leader in both fax server and fax over IP solutions. And as you can see here, they've sold over 100,000 servers worldwide. Well, so as you're going to hear from John, we're working with many local authorities, and I think the reasons for this are because, firstly, in councils, fax remains a crucial means of securely sending confidential information, but also because we can deliver big cost savings and efficiency benefits. So our extensive experience in this area enables us to give you the best advice on implementing fax server solutions within your organisation, and I really believe that makes us a safe bet if you're looking to implement a fax solution. So why is fax important? Why are over 200 billion pages faxed every year? Well, the fact is that fax remains the trusted delivery mechanism for time-critical, crucial business documents. It's the standard for secure document transfer. It's also legally acceptable, it's binding, and it's widely used for transmitting sensitive information. I think the reasons for this are, firstly, it's proven and reliable. It uses tamper-resistant image files, and it's universally accepted with a huge install base that covers the entire globe. Also, the proof of delivery it provides makes it legally binding. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with fax servers, but just as a quick recap, this slide explains what a fax server is. So it's a server-based solution that removes the need for standalone fax devices. It's a central fax server system that handles all of your fax traffic for your organization and connects locally to the fax lines. Users can then send and receive faxes from their desktop PCs or via their email clients. If you need to send hard copy faxes, then you can do that by faxing through multifunction devices. And it can also enable automated faxing from back-office systems. So that's just a very quick overview of what a fax server is. Now I'm going to hand you over to John, and he's going to explain in more detail how all of this relates specifically to local government.
Thanks, Dan. So I've had the opportunity to work with a number of councils to implement this type of solution. And generally working across all of them, I see a number of themes that are common. And I wanted to work through a few of these today with you. I'm sure you'll be experiencing some of them, if not all of them. Firstly, there are still a large number of single-function fax machines dotted around council organisations for the reasons Dan has just described. So you're having to manage the hardware replacement, the telephony associated with that, the consumables. So the opportunity to consolidate this down to a centralized fax server is quite appealing to councils. Security of documents, again, is key, particularly in departments such as child welfare or processing payments. We find that having the opportunity to deliver inbound faxes to secure network folders, to secure email accounts, is a lot more beneficial than the opportunity of faxes arriving on a fax machine in paper format. So the security level there is greatly increased. We also find that multifunction printer rollouts is happening significantly along councils. The consolidation of printers, of copiers, of scanners and faxes, down to MFPs is widely occurring. With our solution, we find that you can fax-enable MFPs without the need to buy fax cards or without the need to buy telephony plugging into the back of them. So this, again, is a real driver. We also find that amongst councils and all public organisations, there's a strong drive for cost savings. We can demonstrate this through a return on investment report, which I will cover off a bit later. We also find that there is a significant requirement for audit trail for compliance reasons. We have organisations such as the ICO that are enforcing significant fines on organisations for data breaches and in particular for fax data breaches. We have had a couple of organisations come to us to say we have been fined or we've been threatened with a fine. So we're finding that our solution, and we'll demonstrate the audit trail later, is really resolving these issues. As Dan says, we do have a number of council organisations that we already work with. Some of these councils use their fax server solutions as organisation-wide, so for everyday inbound and outbound delivery, and some will use it for a specific process. So, for example, in child welfare, where they're looking to deliver their documents securely to inbound folders, it may be a small installation, but still a very, very important installation. So we do use these as reference points, so please, if you want to get in touch with any of these, get in touch. So Dan went into what a fax server is. I'm going to explain in a bit more detail about what RightFax is as a solution. So there's two main areas here. Firstly, it's the opportunity to integrate with your IP phone switch. So we're seeing that there is a general trend away from traditional telephony that's expensive, so analog, ISDN, E1 connections, moving to native IP integration. And we can integrate RightFax into that situation. So we have full interoperability guides with Cisco, with Avaya, with Mitel, and we can provide them for you. So it gives you that opportunity to integrate fax into your IP network. We're also finding that a number of organisations want to put applications like RightFax into a virtual environment. We integrate with VMware, we integrate with Hyper-V. So the benefits are that we can consolidate, simplify, and reduce the cost of IT infrastructure. But the real benefit we feel with putting RightFax into a virtual environment is the wider choice of higher availability options. And we come on to this a bit later in the presentation. So what are the telephony options? With RightFax, we can be very, very flexible. So we have options to integrate with traditional telephony like analog, like ISDN and PRI. We can use the media gateway, as you can see here, to connect into our central RightFax solution. We also can integrate using SIP trunks and IP PBXs as described earlier. There's also an opportunity to have all of your telephony hosted. So if you want to move away from having localized telephony, you can use a product called RightFax Connect to have all of your telephony hosted in the cloud. So this is a kind of an example of a hybrid environment, which could be very, very typical within a council. So, for example, Site 1 uses traditional telephony. We implement a gateway to connect to the central software. Site 2 may use a SIP trunk. Again, we can integrate that. And Site 3 may want their hosted telephony. So the point is here that we can be very, very flexible and deliver all of those options. So how is RightFax priced and what's the model here? With RightFax, there's no user licensing. So you don't need to worry about the amount of users that you have. And as a council, typically you have hundreds, if not thousands of users. So it's actually licensed by the number of channels that you use, that you require for your fax traffic. So for example, if you've got 900, 1,000 pages of fax going throughout the council on a daily basis, then a two-channel solution would work well. The other side to this is the modules. So we will work with you to understand what your requirement is and what the modules are that you need as an organization. So if you want to integrate with SharePoint or you want to integrate with Exchange, then we use those modules. So again, we work with you to understand this to make sure that you're getting the required modules. The great thing here as well is that you can add channels very easily by just releasing a license key, and you can add modules at any stage. I talked a little bit about MFP integration earlier. With RightFax, as to reiterate, you don't need to worry about the fax cards and you don't need to worry about the telephony going into the back of the devices, so there's a significant cost saving there. We can fax-enable devices in two ways, one being generic SMTP. So any user can walk up to any device of any manufacturer and type in fax number at a domain name that we set up. So it could be fax number at ams.fax, for example. This gives you real flexibility because it's not reliant on the makes and models of the MFP. We also have interactive connectors that give advanced functionality around the MFP. So as you can see, we integrate with lots of the major brands. The benefits here are that you can authenticate at the device, you can add cover pages, you can add phone books, you can have a physical fax button on the device. So all we need to do is check what makes and models of MFP that you have, and then we can decide whether those interactive connectors are available. So if we are looking to replace 20, 30, 50 fax machines with a centralized fax server, then redundancy and DR is obviously critical. And again, the power of RightFax is that it can be very, very flexible here. If you want a single installation, that's fine. If you want to use shared services where you have multiple instances of RightFax, again, we can set that up. You can also use the DR tools within virtualization, whether you want to manually restore the image or if you want to use something like vMotion to automatically restore the image. Again, we will work with you to understand what your requirement is and make sure that this suits you as a business. I'm going to hand over now to Richard, who's going to go through a quick user interface demonstration.
Thanks, John. So as we've seen, RightFax has a number of different connectors and modules that allow for specific integration with software applications and devices. But what I want to go through are some of the client applications and user interfaces that come as standard with RightFax. So these are tools that allow end users to send faxes from their desktop and also view and manage received faxes. The client applications are Windows-based, so they support the Windows XP platform all the way through to Windows 8. They can be installed locally on each user's workstation. They can be deployed to multiple machines through an MSI rollout. And they also support Citrix, XenApp sort of terminal servers environment as well. We've also got user interfaces or integrations that require no installation at all. And this is great when users want to access their fax documents or fax information on different devices such as smartphones, tablets, Macs, and things like that. But I'm going to start off by showing you a client application that we call Print2Fax, and this utilizes a virtual print driver that is installed locally on the end user's workstation. The great thing about using a print driver is it requires very minimal user training. To send a document out as a fax, all end user needs to know is which printer to select. And essentially, when using a print driver, it fax enables any Windows application or document or image type that you can print from. So if you can print from it, you can fax from it. As an example, if I was working away on a Word document that I needed to send out as a fax, if I was going to send this manually, obviously I'd have to print it off, pick up my printout, go to a fax machine that's located near me, maybe populate a cover sheet or pick up a precompiled cover sheet, scan it in, enter a fax number, then wait around for a couple of minutes for the transmission to complete and to get a confirmation printout from the device. When using the print driver, all an end user would have to do is bring up their printing options, make sure the RightFax printer was selected, and then hit print. And this brings up a fax information dialog window, just prompting me to enter in some recipient information. The only mandatory field is the fax number. This can be configurable by an administrator, but I'll enter in my fax number, hit send, and then that's it for the end user. RightFax takes over from there. So RightFax will take my printed document, any other attachments I've added, and convert them into a faxable format. If my user preferences are set to use a cover sheet, then it will generate that front page for me. It will personalize it, so it will pull down all my user details, so my name, my phone number, my fax number, my email address, and obviously it will transmit the fax for me. It will handle any retries or transmission attempts, and then once the fax is successfully sent, or if it failed to send for whatever reason, it's going to notify me of that status. Now, the form of notification is configurable on a user-by-user basis, but usually they consist of either an email address, an email into my personal mailbox, maybe a text message to my phone, a printout next to a printer that I sit by, pop-up on my desktop, something like that. So that's the WriteFax print driver. Another application that an end user can use is the WriteFax FaxUtil. And this application again can be used to compose and send outbound faxes, but it also allows you to see the real-time status of a fax, and it allows you to view your inbound faxes and manage them. It's pretty simple and intuitive interface. On the left-hand side, we've got a directory tree structure that's usually quite familiar with end users. It's the same as sort of Outlook or other sort of messaging applications. As a user, we can create folders within here or subdirectories to manage our faxes. Oh, I've already got a folder called Save. Try that again. On the right-hand panel, we've got a list of faxes that are contained within the directory that we've selected. On the top toolbar, we've got options such as create a new fax, which brings up my fax information dialog window again. I've got the option to delete a fax. I can view a fax. I can print a fax to a network printer or a local printer. I can OCR the fax, so this will pull all the human readable text out of the actual fax image for me. If I needed to forward the fax to a user or another fax machine, then I can use these three icons here. History, this is quite a neat feature within WriteFax. So with every fax that's sent and received, there's an audit that goes along with that fax. So if I view the audit of this outbound fax I just sent, at the moment it's just got a little bit of transmission information. But if I was to view the fax and then check out the audit again, it's logged the fact that I've opened that. So my user account has viewed that image. And we log as much as we can, which really helps with compliance. So it's going to show you who's viewed the fax, who's printed the fax or exported the fax out of the system, who's routed it to another user, or if it's been sent to an email address, things like that. Some other options, obviously got a phone book, so as an end user I can manage my contacts or manage my shared contacts that I might have with other users. I've got options to configure how the FaxUtil application operates and looks. And then finally I've got some delegate permissions, which are ways for me to give other users permissions to my mailbox. So perhaps I'm going away on holiday and I want to give a colleague access to my mailbox, or maybe a colleague's asked for permissions to use my phone book, for example. So that's the FaxUtil, which is a great way of sending and receiving faxes. But as I mentioned earlier, there's also ways of us integrating working with WriteFax without having to install anything. And a very popular way of doing this is by integrating with the client's email server or mail client. We use a method called generic SMTP and secure IMAP in certain situations, which allows us to work with on-premise SMTP compliant mail servers such as Microsoft Exchange, Lotus Notes, GroupWise, and also cloud-based email solutions such as Office 365 and Gmail, NHS.net, things like that, where the addressing format is standardized. So we don't have to install anything on the end user's machine. All they need to do when sending a fax from their mail client is create a new email message, compose the email message as they normally would. So anything that's included in the subject or the body of the email will just go on the cover sheet or first page of my fax. Then they can attach any documents they want to fax, so Word documents, PowerPoint, Excel, sheets, image files, whatever it might be. And then finally they'd have to address the fax. And this is done by simply entering the fax number that they want to send to, and then the user remembering an address space or a domain that's been configured for them. And this really can be anything. So this example here is send.fax, but a lot of companies use their own company domain or company name and then .fax, but whatever is simple and memorable for the end users. Once that happened, all they have to do is hit send, and that's it. It will hit WriteFax, and WriteFax will take over from there. I've probably got a notification example in here, so if I was sending a fax from the print driver, FaxUtil, or from my mail client, and I had notifications set as email format, then here's an example. The body of the email just contains a bit of transmission information, and then I've opted to have the actual fax I sent as a PDF attachment, but we can deliver it in multiple formats, TIFF, PDF, searchable PDF, things like that. In regards of handling inbound faxes through the email client, again, this is really simple for the end users because the inbound fax just appears as a normal email message. So they'll receive an email in their inbox. When they click on it, it will again have some information, some transmission information in the body of the email. It will say who the fax is from. So it says from remote ID here, but we'd normally expect like a company name or phone number to be presented from the sending device. And again, we can attach the actual received fax as a PDF, a searchable PDF, or a TIFF. And if we didn't want to have sort of attachments going through the mail server, sensitive information, then we can also have a hyperlink or a URL embedded within the body of the email that a user can then click, and that will open the image of the fax within a browser. So that's a way of integrating without installing anything on the end user's workstation. You might have noticed on some of the John slides that he's gone through that there was connectors for Microsoft Exchange and Lotus Notes. This is slightly different to the method of faxing that I've just demonstrated. They require an installation on the mail server and usually an add-in or a plug-in on the client's local machine. The benefit that gives you is you have buttons and icons within your mail client. So for example, if I installed that Microsoft Outlook add-in, I would have next to my new email a button that says new fax, and when I clicked on that, it would bring up a message window that's tailored for faxing. So I'd be able to choose my cover sheet, raise the priority of my fax, choose from a phone book that exists on WriteFax, things like that. We can also do fancy options like viewing the outbound faxes directly from the mail client. But what that does is just fax enables the actual client you're working with. When we're using generic SMTP, we're not just fax enabling the actual mail client, we're really fax enabling the whole mailbox for that user. So they can send and receive faxes from however they're accessing their email, whether that be through a web interface, on their smartphones, or on their tablets. Another user interface that they can use without having to install any applications is called WriteFax Web Client, and this was written in HTML1, and it's a bit more simpler than the WebUtil client, but it works across all browsers. So it's been written for cross-browser support, so it's going to work on Opera, Chrome, Firefox, IE, whatever your browser you're using, and from whatever device you're using. We can do most of the features. So obviously we can send faxes. I can drill down into my folders and view my sent and received faxes. I can export them and save them as PDFs. I can forward them to other users. And I can do pretty much everything I need to do through that interface. So I hope that's been useful. There are some of the client applications and interfaces that can be used with WriteFax. I'll hand you back over to John.
Thanks, Rich. So I wanted to quickly run through an implementation example of one of our customers, Suffolk Council. So the general process that we go through, we'd firstly try and understand some key drivers within the council as to why they want to implement our type of solution. For this particular council, it was around total cost of ownership around fax machines, so trying to essentially drive down costs. They also wanted the ease of use and process improvement. So instead of going through that whole manual process Rich described earlier, they're able to now send from their desktop, get notifications automatically to their desktop, so they're not having that whole rigmarole of running around the office with pieces of paper. So that was a real benefit to them. Secure delivery of faxes, again, this is quite common, but having the flexibility of IT controlling who can access those inbound faxes, whether it be public folder, network share, email integration. So giving them that control really helps. And in particular for these guys, they wanted something for their PCI compliance. So the audit trail that Rich showed you earlier, again, really covered this. So these were some strong arguments why they wanted to move over to the RightFacts software. So we work with them to produce a business case based on these key drivers, and we also produce a return on investment report. So this is based on figures provided by the council, whether it's the fax volume, some of the costs associated, the number of fax machines, and then we will build an ROI report, presenting that along with the business case to the key stakeholders. In this particular occasion, we got agreement to move forward with a proof of concept, and we understand that in most organisations they want to be able to see these types of solutions working in their environment before they commit to any kind of purchase, so we are happy to do a proof of concept. So we would then get Rich and one of his team involved to do a technical scoping meeting. This is to really get to the nitty-gritty and understand the infrastructure that you have within the council and how we're going to integrate the RightFacts solution. We would generally draw up a success criteria to outline what it's going to take for us to prove a successful proof of concept. And also we'll identify some key areas within the council, some heavy fax users that would see the most benefit from the proof of concept. So this works generally very well. We will evaluate the product for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks usually. We will support you all the way through that process. So we will try and make it run as smoothly as possible and help you if you need any help. And then hopefully we've fulfilled all the criteria on the success criteria and the order is placed, which is what happened in this particular occasion. We wouldn't necessarily encourage a big bang rollout. We generally go for the staggered rollout. And a nice way of doing this is when someone's fax machine dies, or they have a critical fax process that they want to get involved, then we say, this is now where you will receive your electronic faxing, this is the location, and these are the ways in which you can send faxes, whether it be print driver, email integration, MFP integration. And that tends to work very, very well with our customers. In the future, then, we tend to look at the expansion of the solution, whether they need extra channels, whether they need additional modules, as described earlier, and also to make sure that they're happy with the redundancy. To make sure that that's all covered. So this is the typical process that we would go through. So this slide really tries to illustrate the power of RightFacts. So why RightFacts is the leader in enterprise fax. So we have all of these powerful organisations, all of these brand names in ECM, ERP, VoIP and MFP manufacturers that have all paid money and put a lot of time into their partnership programs to create connectors into the RightFacts software. This is because they see RightFacts as the market leader, as a robust, as a reliable and an intuitive solution. So I feel there's no other product on the market that has these integration tools. So this should give you some reassurance that RightFacts is a fantastic product to work for. So in summary, AMS and OpenText really are the fax experts. We've got a lot of experience in the fax server market and a lot of experience dealing with local councils. So to reiterate what Dan says, if you have any kind of requirement, then we are certainly a good place to start. Our support team are dedicated fax specialists. We don't outsource any of our support. It's all dealt with in-house, and again, they have a huge amount of experience dealing with these types of solutions. Ultimately, we are looking to significantly reduce the total cost of fax, whether that's the hard costs we described earlier or the softer costs around the processes. And there are other benefits, including improving the security, making your fax traffic more compliant, and driving down the process within local government. And we're very successful at this. So thank you for your time. I'm going to pass back to Dan now, who's going to deal with any questions we've had come in.
Thanks, John. So we have had a few questions. The first one is, we have Xerox MFPs. Does this product support these? So the answer to that is yes. We do have integration with Xerox MFPs. John, you might want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a couple of connectors into the Xerox devices. We also have the generic SMTP integration that I described earlier. So all we need to do really is to find out the makes and models of your devices, find out the functionality that you want within that, and then we can work with you to decide whether generic SMTP or the native connector is best suited to your requirements. So just get in touch and let us know what devices you have.
Thanks. The next one is, can RightFacts provide internal billing? As a council, we charge out to our departments for fax. Richard, that's probably a good one for you.
The answer to that is yes, RightFacts has billing included. It has its own reporting software as well. So through the WriteFax application, reports can be generated or scheduled to have that information. We also have integrations with billing software such as Equitrack or CopyTrack, and it's a two-way kind of integration, so they can sync billback codes from those accounting softwares into the WriteFax application, and also again on a scheduled basis, the outbound fax that have been sent can be imported into these billing systems with the correct bill codes for accounting options.
Thanks. Another question we have is, we have a FaxPress Premier server, can we upgrade to WriteFax? So the answer is yes. Both the FaxPress products and WriteFax are solutions from OpenText, and we have a great upgrade path between the two, including great discounts for that upgrade process, and we can assist you with the migration. Another question is, where would I be able to find pricing for this solution? Well, your account manager will get back to you on that. For anyone else, if you need any pricing or any other information, then just let us know, and we'll be able to assist you with that. Okay. The other question we have is, can you show the SharePoint connector, Richard?
Unfortunately, I can't show it through the demonstration, but obviously we can show it to you offline. I just need to install it, really. The way it works is it's a two-way sync, so it's a template that's added to the SharePoint site or farm, and it creates fax libraries, a bit like a document library, where inbound faxes are pulled from SharePoint, pulled from WriteFax directly into SharePoint, and it also allows you to fax from SharePoint as well. So within a document library or a fax library, you can select a document, select fax, and within SharePoint you'll get sort of the addressing information and the options to choose cover sheets and things like that. So it's quite a neat and tight integration with SharePoint, and we can certainly show you that at a different time.
Okay, it looks like that's all the questions we have. So we're coming to the end of the session. We've only had a short time to talk through some of the benefits of WriteFax and given a very brief demo. If you're interested in seeing more, or if you have any other questions, as I said, then please let us know and we'll arrange a more in-depth demonstration. Thanks again for your time.